Hey, hello. How are you? Thank you for joining me. We're going to take a look at some more magazines today. This is another stack, much in the same way as the last couple ones. It was inside of this container. It's all unbagged. It's all stuff that belongs in other places, and I've already established other places for just about everything here. I don't know absolutely everything here. I just have an idea because I just kind of looked at the side. Some of these were pulled out for the four color fossils last week. There were a couple of these I think that I used on that show. Um, but still, what I'm doing is I'm separating because there's places for pretty much I think all of this stuff in here that I've established. So I'm finding this stuff that hasn't been organized, and then I'm going to be integrating it into my previously or already organized magazines. So, for example, this creepy is going to go in an area, uh, a big stack of Warrens. Probably we're going to end up with enough to fill up a couple of these boxes that'll just be all Warrens. Um, but right now, we're going to be accumulating them. So this is an issue of Creepy that I bought brand new off the stands at the newsstand in Placerville, California. It's had a lot of readings and a lot of wear. This is from 1976, July of 76. This is when I'm first discovering Creepy, or just really, I'm first discovering uh, Warren magazines. And what I am discovering when I'm finding them on the rack is that Creepy is the one that I like the most at the beginning, and even at the end probably. But at the beginning, I could see that there were Eerie, and there were Creepy, and there were Vampirella. And then later I would notice like the Rook and the Spirit. But in the beginning, Creepy was what stood out to me the most. Now, when I looked through Eerie, sometimes it looked interesting to me, but not as much as Creepy. And then at the beginning, when I was buying these, I'm about 10 years old. So Vampirella, it embarrassed me. I didn't want to look too closely at that one. But only a year later, I would be buying that. I would have no problem with picking that up and just walking right up to the counter and slapping down my quarters and buying Vampirella. But at this point, I'm just buying Creepy, and this is one of the earliest issues that I ever purchased off the stand. It's this beautiful painting. Is this Ken Kelly? I'm just guessing, but I feel like that's the name of this artist. And it's these are gremlins in World War I fighting against each other. So it's like an allied gremlin versus an axe, but it wasn't Axis. What is this? This is an American versus a German, is what you see here. There's the Red Baron. Look at that Fokker. Look at that Fokker. So yeah, that's what's happening. It's nice. It's a nice illustration. It's a beautiful. It's a nice painting. It's classic. I think it became more classic afterwards. Maybe people that don't know this time period and weren't around at this time period think that this is like the coolest thing ever. But there were way better and cooler creepy covers than this, and so this is just like a regular old creepy cover. Um, I never got any of these Comics Internationals, but I always wanted them just based on this ad that was frequently on the back of Creepy and Vampirella. Um, and I mean, you can see it. There it is. It looks really awesome. It's color, and it's a lot of Richard Corbin stuff. Let's look and see what we see. This is from that terrifying uh, Richard Corbin story, Anti-Christmas. This terrified me as a kid. This is from it too, I think. We'll get to this eventually. This is from that horrifying, creepy issue that has Santa Claus with a bag of entrails under the Christmas tree. Um, we'll get to that in a little bit. I bought that maybe a year after this. This might have been around the same year as this. A few months later, I bought that one, but I don't know if it might be in the stack. I forget. It doesn't matter. We'll get to it. So great back cover. You can see I would have wanted why anyone would have wanted these Comics Internationals, but I never even saw them in real life, in a person. $500 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the persons responsible for the printing and selling of counterfeit copies of Eerie issue number 1. I remember hearing about this. You guys remember this? So are these still around? Yeah, I think they are. So you can see July 1976. So you might have a counterfeit copy of Eerie number 1. You. Yes, you. If you haven't seen Creepy before, it is well, first of all, the quality of the paper is not really high. So here we sit 50 years later, and it has yellowed, and these really, well, this has been, like I said, this went to many sleepovers and was loaned out to people, and people brought it back, and all kinds of people read this. All tons of my friends, and I let people take it and then bring it back. It's an anthology title where these stories are little horror, shock, suspense stories. A lot of the artists are European, Spanish in particular, and then I would say sometimes there's some Filipino artists in here. The quality is always super high. And that's what I would say. Sometimes you get nudity in here, which for me, I was here for all the other stuff that I just mentioned, but the nudity was like an aside. It was a plus because, nobody even knew that this nudity was in here. Because we were so cool about it, we weren't making a big deal about it. I wasn't like, man, I wasn't telling my mom, hey, Mom, can you take me to Safeway so I can get one of those creepy magazines that will have a drawing of a woman's naked butt while she's being restrained by some sort of a rope or something, and maybe she's going to be whipped. Can you pull over so I could run into 7-Eleven to get one of those, Mom? No, I wasn't doing that. I was just saying I would just take it up to the counter and buy it. So she didn't, and then maybe once or twice she looked at an issue. Oh, this is one of my most favorite stories. Maybe once or twice she looked at an issue of Vampirella and she saw that cover of Vampirella and she's like, what is that? And I just opened it up and went like this. Oh, it's just a comic, Mom. And I flipped it open like that, and she saw that it was black and white, and it was just these drawings with words. She didn't see anything. She didn't look real closely, and she goes, oh, okay. She just knew that she could see that immediately. She could see, oh, it's not smut. She could see that it doesn't look like actual pornography because she knew what actual pornography looked like. I didn't know what actual pornography looked like, but no doubt she knew what actual pornography looked like. She was a grown woman, so she knew what it looked like. She knew this wasn't pornography. She knew this was a comic book for a kid. It was just black and white or something weird. She didn't really care. But maybe she wouldn't have, we all know. Anyway, this is an incredible story. It's Close Shave. Roger McKenzie and Martín Salvador. I highly recommend this. We can't go. We just got to keep going. We got so many magazines to do. Why did we spend so much time on? We spent 9 minutes on Creepy number 81. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? He-Man and the Masters of the Universe magazine. This is cool. It's summer of 1987. Now including She-Ra. It's the Motu movie collector issue. In the summer of 87, I'm in the Army. I'm not buying He-Man and the Master of the Universe magazine, but you know who is? You guessed it. My mother. My mother is buying He-Man and the Master of the Universe magazine. Yes. Saving them. And then giving them to me. Like 6 years later after I get out of the Army. Serious. She had these. Well, why wouldn't I be serious? I'm sorry that I always say that. I apologize for saying I'm serious or I'm not joking or I shit you not or oh yeah, or what else does some of the shit does? Anyway, so yes, purchased by my mother and then put in stacks upon all this other stuff that you see that, man, she just saved for me. Pretty much all the stuff, all that I asked for her to save for me was just boxes of paper, these little pamphlets. Wasn't too much to ask. It wasn't a lot of stuff. So she just always kept it in her back closet there for many, many years. And it was always air conditioned and it was always taken care of. So it was always just kept there. And so she would find stuff over, and then stack stuff on top of it, stuff that she knew that I would probably like. And some of that would be these Masters of the Universe magazines. And this one is dope. I would have never bought this on my own. And it's really cool that she got this. It's probably pretty rare. I don't know. It's kind of cool. This is not the only one. She got more. I believe she got we'll come across more. Pretty sure she paid for a subscription. So she herself, my mother's first name was Carmen too. Imagine that. So my mother, my ethnic mother, first generation immigrant to America, had a subscription probably at age 65. She was probably older than me at that time. I would have to do the math. She was probably quite a bit older than me at the time that she had a subscription to He-Man Masters of the Universe magazine. Because she was thoughtful and unusual and quirky and funny and cool and awesome. Oh, look at this. Kevin would love this. Ready or not, here they come. Garbage Pail Kids in their first movie. It's probably not that big of a deal. Maybe he has this print ad, but maybe he doesn't, or maybe he's never seen this print ad. So that's cool. He might be interested in this. It's not like the ad doesn't really grab you, does it? It doesn't say Garbage Pail Kid. Are they just afraid of? I don't know. We should talk about this. Why isn't there a Garbage Pail Kid on the ad? Interesting. So yeah, this 65, Max Headroom, 70-year-old woman had a subscription to He-Man because she was cool. Wow, look at these comics in here. If there were posters in here, they're already gone because I gave these to my kids when they were little. And my kids probably took if the posters are gone, it means the kids took the posters out and hung them up, and I didn't care. But they took care of the books just the same way that I did when I was a kid. I might even have showed them how to do it or done it for them. Look at this ad, 1987. A great taste of Jif. It will rock your socks off. I really like looking at old magazines. I mean, this in particular is a cool one to look at because it's He-Man, and I happen to like He-Man and stuff, and maybe you do too. But I like any old magazines just to look at what the world used to look like, to see what the advertisements are for. Kiddio TV, hey kids. Nobody did any of the puzzles. The art is great in the Power Puzzle. The art throughout this whole, and the quality of this magazine is very high. It's nice. It's nicely done. It's nicely produced, this He-Man magazine. Let's see if there's a number on the inside. Brave Star. This could be the first issue. I don't know though. This is some sort of a movie issue. It just says when it's published. Do you see the number? Issue number 11. Okay. Boy, we got really far. We're 14 and a half minutes in and we've done 2 magazines. It's time to move quickly. It's the Sports Illustrated Special Collector's Edition, a super season, San Francisco 49ers 1994. The 49ers won the Super Bowl this season. Who did they beat? Was it the San Diego Chargers? It's been so long ago. And then, over the years, the 49ers won so many Super Bowls. sometimes they beat certain teams more than once, even in the Super Bowl. Same team, they beat them again. Like a year or two later, they'd play them, and then they would just beat them again. That happened. But I believe this was the year that they beat San Diego, 1994. Yeah, look, there they are, dejected. Conan Saga. Conan Saga is really cool if you can find these. This is a great thing to find and pick up. It's probably going to be inexpensive because what this is full-length reprints of the earliest of early Conan Marvel Comics appearances by Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith. So this is going to be stuff from the early issues, reprints from your first 12 or 15 issues of Conan every time. And it's all going to be good. Even if it's black and white, it's bigger than it was originally. So now you got a little bit bigger than a comic sized, but it's in black and white. So let's see what issues these are all from, just to give you a flavor of what this is about. It doesn't actually say. It just says Bing Bang Bong, and then if you turn this page, does it say over here? By the way, BTW reprinted from Conan number, what would this be? Conan number 21? Is that where we're at this point? Because if there's 3 issues per ish, and this is number 7, I'm not really sure. I'm pretty darn positive these are just reprints of all that old stuff we talked about, or that I just talked about. Okay, finally. So I guess in issue number 9, they decided it would be a good idea to start reprinting the covers that the original stories came from. So this is reprinting Conan number 24, and as I said last time, I was correct. This is 21, 22, and 23 in here. And this is going to be issue 24, 25, and 26, because it's 3 issues, 3 full-length stories. Reprinted in black and white in a larger format. You can see it. It originally sold for only $2, but I think I might have spent maybe $1, because I think I bought these in the overstock, like the dollar bins, way back when. And you might be able to find them for a similar price. Maybe not that cheap, but they're going to be cheap. This is Warriors of the Shadow Realm. This was like a Marvel super special. And it was a special series. It ran for 3 issues. They're all 3 of them are here. It's very Tolkien or Hobbit-like. It's really well done. It's well written and well drawn. I want to say this came out for me, it was like between 7th and 8th grade. It was right around the time when I was being exposed to an actual comic shop and being able, for the first time, I was able to be in a position where I wasn't going to miss anything anymore. Where I was able to buy stuff directly at a comic shop instead of at a grocery store or a newsstand where things just seemed to appear and disappear randomly. Instead, I was now at a comic shop that I could go to multiple days of the week, and that I got to know the owner and got used to everything and learned how everything worked. So this was right at the beginning of that. Once again, I don't know why it's so important to me to find years and months, but it is. So it's just as I said. It's spring, June of 1979. So I think this is 8th grade. I feel like is this the end of 8th grade or the beginning of 8th grade? I forget. It doesn't really matter. All I remember is that this was that time period and that I bought these from the comic collector shop on Alvarado Street in Monterey, California, from Bob Sidebottom. The infamous Bob Sidebottom. And I do remember that these were very important to me. You can see I took care of them. They still look like they're brand new. It's beautifully drawn. It's all color. I don't know why I make mistakes like this and I take so much time, but I hope you don't mind. Anyway, maybe you're entertained. So it's conceived and written by this guy. I always said Monk, but I always said Monk. This guy, Doug Monk, and designed, and I don't know if that's right. I get stuff wrong all the time. Like I got Daniel Clowes wrong. It's Clowes. So it says designed and drawn by John Buscema, and then inked by Rudy Nebres. And it's beautiful. I think that this is really good. And I loved it, as I was saying, as a kid, and I took care of it. I was really into the story, and I was waiting for each episode to come out. So my memory of this is it's either this issue or this issue. It is one of these issues. And remember how I said earlier that it wasn't like I was telling my mom I'm going to run into the store and buy a magazine with a girl's naked butt in it. But it was one of these two issues. We were driving through downtown at one point one day, and I asked her if she could just pull over just for a second. We're like on Alvarado Street, and we were like really close. Like we could be right in front of the comic shop if she could just pull over and wait. And so I said, could you just pull over for a second right here? And so this is a downtown, and it's a small city, but it's an old city. So it has wide old sidewalks and tall buildings, even though it's not a big city. This part of old downtown Monterey. And so I asked her to pull over just real quick. I just want to run into the comic shop and get something really fast, because I knew one of these had just arrived. Someone had told me, or I had heard, or my friend told me. Maybe it was this one. It just got there. I knew that it was there for like a day, and I'm like, I want to run in there. Look at how good a condition I kept it in. I wanted to run in there and make sure that I got a copy before they were all gone. So I asked her, can you just pull over for a second, Mom? Just pull over. And she's like, okay. And so I ran in really fast, and I just ran in and bought one comic. It's like one of those weird situations. Can you ever remember going to a comic shop just specifically and just going in and buying one comic and running back out because you needed that one? That's a good question. That would be a fun question. And then it would be fun to get to hear what the answers were, because this is one of those comics where I actually did that, where I purposefully ran into a comic shop because I knew it was there just to buy that one comic, because I wanted to get it before it was all gone. This is 1979. Keep in mind things are much different, but it was the beginning of the direct market. 1979, it wasn't the direct market yet, but it was the beginning of comic shops being established as actual businesses, and not just like weirdos that are doing something like with a little hobby or something. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. So this was a legitimate comic shop that this guy where I bought this stuff from, and Bob Sidebottom, not only had comics, but he had old records, old jazz records, tons of those, and lots of pulps, tons of old pulps, and then also lots of golden age stuff with a high emphasis on Fawcett and anything having to do with Captain Marvel and the Marvel family. He pretty much, I think, had everything of all of that stuff there. That's what I would remember seeing the old timers, which to me at the time would be people over 40 or 30 maybe, but mostly it seemed like old guys that would go in there that would have like the jackets with the leather patches on the elbows. Those guys would be looking at the stuff that I just mentioned, pulps and Captain Marvel and Marvel family. This is 1984. This is the first issue. This is from Warren. I didn't buy this new. I got this from a friend of mine, a friend that gave this to me that did buy this new, but he was like one of those people that was like, he was like a guy that would buy comics and magazines, but then would just either throw them away, or if I'm around, he's like, here, man, you want this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He was just going to throw it away if I didn't want it. But it was just an issue in 1984 that he'd probably had around the house for 4 or 6 years that he bought off the stands. It's kind of beat up and everything. But recently, a friend was talking about this. Another friend had mentioned it, and then another friend talked about it and mentioned about how this is there's some disgusting content in this magazine, and like some deplorable, some creepy, some crappy, some weird content in here. So this magazine, you got to keep in mind what this is. What Warren, I think, at this point is trying to compete or come up with an idea that touches touches the same nerve as heavy metal. So, but they might go overboard. They kind of cross over the line, right? And so my friend mentioned that they crossed over the line here, like in a way. And so I didn't remember that, but I had read this, but it had been years since I had read it. And so I just looked over it recently. And in here, I think the story that he's talking about immediately stood out to me. And what's interesting is the story that he was probably talking about is written and drawn by Wally Wood. And it's about these little elf people. And it might be fairly famous, but it's pretty graphic and salacious, and there's terrible things happening, like a baby gets hit with an arrow. There's rape scenes and brutal torture and stuff that involves these cute little elves. It's all done by Wally Wood, who we know could kind of be warped a little bit at sometimes, but that's what's in here. And now I think it's it is pretty disgusting and creepy, but at the same time, it's exactly the type of stuff that I actually, in a way, really love. And I love Wally Wood, and I love I might not enjoy it. It might be creepy when I read it. I don't even want to show too much of it anymore because it is horrible, and there's some creepiness in here. Look at this, all these people getting hammered by these arrows, by this volley of arrows. It's Wally Wood. It's kind of cool, isn't it? But it is. Look down here. It kind of blew my mind when I saw that. Author and illustrator Wally Wood. And this is probably what he was talking about that's kind of creepy. Because it is. It's pretty graphic. It's very graphic is what it is. But it's probably very entertaining. I mean, I'm still talking about it. Naked Apes in Color. Creepy. See evil, hear evil, speak evil. Guerrilla warfare issue. Nice cover, right? Again, is this Ken Kelly again? We forgot to look the last time, but I feel like... No. Dan Mates or Dan Mites. So this is one of those instances where, so Creepy did this thing a couple different times where they would have an issue that would have a cover image, and then that cover image, all the stories on the inside would be based upon this cover image, but they wouldn't be interrelated. They would all just be separate stories. So that's the instance here. So all these stories are just have something to do with this image on the cover. And that's kind of it. There's one of them. So there's some good ones in here. This has got art by John Severin, and this one, they're like, it's they're trying to find like these sentient apes, and they look just like the ones on the cover. See, look. They look just like the guys on the cover. So that's what's happening. So the first one is John Severin. I'm going to really recommend this issue of Creepy to you because you're going to see. Then the next story is going to be Bernie Wrightson. And it's going to be another story about them trying to find the apes. But it's going to be a different story, the one that Bernie Wrightson and Bruce Jones did. Then you're going to get a color insert one with Esteban Roto, Carrie Bates' story, and so on, etc., etc. Yeah. Who said that the other day? Basil said that. Star Wars is here, and they're selling all this cool Star Wars merchandise. I always wanted any or all of these. I never got any of them. I did get a couple of those T-shirts down there. Now, if you're new to Warren magazines, maybe you don't know about this at the back. So at the back of Warren is the best advertisement for anything and everything that you could ever want as a kid or even as an adult. So what you would do, or what I would do, anytime I bought any of these, like this one, which I bought brand new, and when is this? This was later. This would have been, what's the year? Why isn't it here? 78. Okay, so this is 78. This is 7th grade, I think, or 8th grade. Anyway, as soon as I bought this, I would open it up. So just like when you get a Mad magazine, the first thing you do is you do the fold in at the back. Well, the first thing you do when you get a Warren is you look at the ads in the back. Now, the ads don't change much from month to month, but they do sometimes. And so that's what you're interested in doing. Sometimes you're seeing the same pictures and the same ads that you've already seen for months and months beforehand. Every month you're looking at the same ads. But sometimes the ads will change. They'll add something new. Things will be switched up. Like all of a sudden the Shogun Warriors plastic model kits are on the scene. So now you're like, whoa. And so I would look at and read every word on here every month, every time I bought one, even if I was looking at the same ad, like this superhero model kit ad, even though I had owned almost all of these in my in my childhood. I think I had every one of these in my childhood. I didn't have this Superman model. I didn't have this Lone Ranger, but I did have Tonto and I did have Spider-Man, and I had all 4 of those over there as a kid. But I wanted to look at them over and over again, and all these back issues, I looked at close-ups. I stared at all these little pictures. We're going to run out of time any second, and so what I think we should do is, this will be the end of part 1 of looking at magazines tonight, and we're going to start part 2 right now. So hang on, we'll see you next time. And we'll be right back after this station identification.